So similar to the video I just did for the Dark Side Tower of Darkness, I'm going to try a little bit different approach to this and try to give you much more detail than I've been able to do up to this point. I'm not a master yet of video making, but I think I can get this to give you a little bit more precise close-up detail than I was able to do in the past. So I was very excited a few months ago to see that RB Customs had finally created his version of Mr. Miracle. And I'd asked Rowan about this figure quite a while back and had said, you know, I never loved the original, the execution of the original Kenner figure back in the day. There are some weaknesses which we'll showcase in just a minute, and would love to get sort of a true version of Mr. Miracle. And fortunately, he said, hey, you know what, I feel the same way. I'm going to get to that figure at some point here in the future. And again, a few weeks ago, we saw that he finally was able to make his version. So I, of course, asked for him to make me this figure so I can complete my JLI collection. Still working on trying to get that finalized, but this was a big piece, is getting this sort of redone Mr. Miracle. And, you know, again, this was one of the few, I did not love the 86 line. There were a few good figures in it. Miracle, I thought, was one of them in theory, but the execution just wasn't that great. So you'll see the old Mr. Miracle, and one of the first things that really jumps out is kind of the drabness of, well, a couple of things. One, the bulky chest. Two, the drabness of the green really jump out on this. And, you know, I actually saw the original cape somewhere, and this is a great looking Cape Master cape that I have alongside this, or that I've added to this. Cape Master did a great job of matching the original Kenner aesthetic, but the Kenner aesthetic overall for this figure just was not great. Not to mention there are a few other details in here that just weren't right. So you'll see I've added the red around the eyes to try to make it match some of the missing paint apps, that as well as the yellow dots on the boots and on the elbows. Those were all missing. I added those as well. Just sort of a poorly executed figure overall. And you know, what we get is from RB Customs is something with a lot more personality. So we get just sort of the perfect Mr. Miracle figure. And look, it starts with the face. Look at the amazing eyes. You can now see Scott Free's eyes. And you know, one of the things that I really loved about Kevin McGuire's art in JLI was them showcasing Scott's eyes, because it was sort of a window to the soul, and his reactions to some of the things that Booster and Beetle were doing were hilarious, because you could really see his reaction. You know, the other thing that jumps out here again is the choice of green. So this light green sort of works. This Kelly or light green looks sort of beautiful. It looks sort of beautiful. It looks beautiful on this figure. Just gets to that sort of perfect Mr. Miracle look. And you'll notice a couple things here. You'll immediately notice the flight discs, and the flight discs are removable. I just have them on the feet, and I don't want to mess around with them too much. But he made them very nicely so that you can fit them perfectly into the feet. And that is exactly the accessory that I thought Mr. Miracle should have included back in the day. And, you know, of course we didn't get that, but we ended up getting this escape device. Hang on one second here. We ended up getting this escape device that was supposed to fit around his waist. And the cool thing, I tested it yesterday, this actually does fit around the waist. I didn't really think of it at the time. His arms are a little bit wide for this device to clasp around the wrist perfectly. And I probably could have asked Rowan to move in the arms a little bit, but I'm not remotely concerned that I didn't ask him to do that. I love the flight discs and think those are the perfect addition. But you know, the old accessory still fits around him. So if you decide to get one of your own, you could ask Rowan to maybe do that. One thing that is a little bit different on mine, and Rowan knows I love metallics, but I wanted him to stick with a little bit more yellow than a little bit more of the darker sort of bronzish gold that he had on his version, just so I could kind of get that consistent Mr. Miracle look. You know, and again, I love my metallics, but I want it to be just that sort of really nice yellow representation. And those little custom elements there are so nicely done. And of course, there's also the little clasp between them that he's added as well, which is just so awesome. So works perfectly. Now, the one thing that really jumps out on this is the cape. This is a little bit different than the RB Customs capes he's done in the past. He always has them hook in through the shoulders, which I believe this does as well at the bottom, or it clicks, or it loads, it's connected through these clasps. But the real trick here is this, this sort of collar part that is very, very difficult to execute. At least Rowan said that was one of the biggest challenges he had. And trying to make that execute and sort of blend in perfectly is a difficult thing. So looking at the back of this figure, I love the RB Customs capes. They're always very nicely ironed and starched and sort of perfectly flow to the figure. And boy, this can be displayed great in a bunch of different ways. So I think many of you remember when Rowan showed his version, he had it on a McFarlane stand, one of the clear stands you can use for Superman. That's a great way to display this figure. I had done that recently when I tried to customize some flight discs for my old Mr. Miracle figure, but finally was able to get this figure, and you can see him now with some of his, I didn't have Barta out, but I will put him with his other sort of JLI contemporaries. And some of the most fun that you'd see are when you get some interactions between these three characters, and always loved the reaction that Mr. Miracle would have when they would get into absurd situations. And back in the day, if they were going to make a JLI movie, I always thought Tom Hanks would be sort of the perfect Mr. Miracle because of his way to sort of yell articulately about absurdity. And that seemed exactly what Mr. Miracle was doing in a lot of the JLI books when he was in situations with Beetle and Booster. So one thing that I want to point out here too, Rowan also, and you can't really tell here because of the flight disc, but he's scaled about perfectly to the height of Blue Beetle. You know how I love relative scaling, and Blue Beetle is supposed to be about 6 feet tall, and Scott Free is about 6 feet tall. Booster's about 6'5", and they all are scaled correctly to each other. So thanks, Rowan, for doing that. I know that was a little bit of a challenge. Oh, one other thing to point out, the belt. And this is one of the challenges. I don't know exactly how Rowan does this, but he's been able to sculpt this belt to this figure. And this is using I believe, Green Lantern figure as a base. And if I'm not mistaken, it's Red Tornado's head that he has sculpted this from. Which again, I never want to undersell because that's such a big challenge. But he's able to give Mr. Miracle sort of this perfect belt, and love the addition of that as well. The left arm has also been slightly turned as well, and again, he's removed the ring, so you can't tell that this was once a body for Green Lantern. And a lot of the little custom tweaks, again, he's worked on the boots here, and you just get to see an amazing amount of detail work that really makes this sort of the perfect Mr. Miracle figure. Let me lift up the cape on the back. I always want to be careful with this cape in particular, but you can see the belt back there. So anyway, love this figure. Love that I'm able to add it in my JLI collection. And if you want, a great figure, reach out to Rowan and get sort of the figure of your dreams. I'll leave a link in the description, and feel free to leave your comments and subscribe to the channel. Thanks.